I want to talk about willingness. It's a really powerful and important concept in our practice, spiritual practice, because it's really the key to how when we're recognizing that we resist because of our beliefs and our fears, and release our we refuse our and resist our highest and best because we're afraid. And that starts to look like a problem. It isn't. I mean, the problem is always collapse. That's the ultimate of it, is collapse, because you can't resist your good forever. You can't resist peace forever. It eventually, I mean, most people, I mean, not most, but a lot of people, I don't know how many people do it, but a lot of people resist it till they die, and then that's when they let go, is when they die. Because you have to let go, because you don't get out of here without letting go. And so everybody can do it, but nobody wants to do it, in the world that much. And I'm not really gearing my videos for people that don't want to do that. I'm gearing for those of you, my family and friends who yearn for that, and want to know how, and any help that could be given along the way. And it's first, the concept of willingness is a key, but it's also based on the concept of faith. I mean, you have to start from a faith of who you are and what the ultimate reality of your universe is. And I like the 12-step program, because the first three steps, I read them, I always look at them through a nutshell. It's based on the first three steps, and those first three steps are: I can't do it, God can, and then I'll let God do it. The interesting thing about those is, I mean, when you're looking at, many that I talk to, myself included, would say, well, I know that I can't do it, and I know God can, but then it gets to the question of, will I let God do it? In other words, will I get out of the way? Will I resist trying to manipulate and see what happens? That's really what it gets down to. It's not, waiting for God to do it, and God, whatever God is, and don't get hung up on God or anything like that. We talk in words, so it doesn't matter. I don't have my concept of what God or higher power is, not a person. It's like more closer to the old analogy of the fish in the sea. I'm the fish and I'm the sea, and we're all one and the same. We're all part of the whole. All of it is sea, and all of and even if I'm individualized as a fish, I'm still part of the whole sea. And it's not like a benevolence of or a human condition or anything like that. That's way too small. Way too small for me. I mean, you can't have a friendly, miraculous universe with a human God. No, that ain't gonna happen. Too much prejudice in that, or a mental God. No, or a personal God. No. I mean, if I'm offending people, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that at all. You can believe that, and it's okay, but I don't. No, I do not. I believe in something much larger than that. In fact, a friend of mine once said, a teacher of mine when I was in ministerial school, he had a great definition. He said, God is always that which is greater than anything that is. And I always liked that one. Greater than anything that is. And greater than existential reality. And with the concept of God, of a higher power, especially if you start taking it to where Einstein was taking it to, which was, most important decision is whether or not you live in a friendly, or as I've kind of piggybacked on that, a friendly, miraculous universe, or a hostile, rational one. It's friendly, miraculous, or it's hostile, rational. And you have to be willing to move towards the friendly, miraculous side, which is not a side. It's actually all encompassing of the other. But to do that, and that's where things start to take place. That's where Jesus can say, if you just ask, it will be done unto you. But he's not talking about asking from rationality. He's talking about asking from miraculous, friendly. And to come to that place, you have to be willing towards it. I understand, and there's no way that I would try to teach someone how to do that or to believe in that. But if you look at things like the sun and how our bodies are made and how blood flows, I mean the perfect socket joints we have, and everything about the things that we don't have control over, that we finally admit, we say, well, I don't have control over the sun shining. Well, I don't have control over making bodies from a sperm and an egg. Or beyond, or even before that. I don't have any control over that. When you start looking at the things that are miraculous, the real obvious miraculous things that they didn't exist, like for instance, if the sun doesn't shine, all are thinking about goal setting and visions and stuff like that, it would be kaput, because the whole physical universe would not be so. If according to rationale, it wouldn't exist. But it does exist. And what do we say? We say, well, what do we say? Well, we're just lucky, and we base the rest of our perceptions founded on luck, a giant cosmic luck, I suppose. If you really want to try and believe that, I can't believe that. And besides which, I've had too much experience to know that it transcends it. That yes, there is a friendly, ever-present, miraculous universe speaking to us through insight all the time, new impressions all the time. When I get out of the way, I see it. When I'm not in the way, I don't. But then that's the whole thing, is like, if I want to turn it over to that spirit, if I want to walk that path and enter more into that path, which is my birthright, and I can do that. And that is not something that we need to think of as just so difficult, especially if we start thinking of it collectively, which is, again, why I'm doing these videos, because it needs to be a collective thing. It needs to be something that can 100th monkey its way across the whole universe. And that is very, very, not only is that very possible, we're on our way to doing it. I mean, the whole idea of what's happening in the world right now, of all the chaos and stuff, that is partially clearing all the boards, because everything that's hidden is being revealed. And as it's being revealed, we're faced at looking at it and saying, so you didn't think all this stuff was here, all this hatred, all this fear, all this chaos. Now you still think you can control it? At some point, chaos increases to such a point, like everything else, like alcoholism creates in an individual where they go, I can't do this, I can't do this. Well, that happens collectively too. It's the same thing. And that's a painful thing. Most people will experience that. But as a whole, we come through that. And we start by you and I finding that sanity together. And the way I've found to really, just get on board with the letting go process is through the concept of willingness. It's the concept of willingness and it's based on the reality that there is something to be willing towards. Even if you don't know how to achieve it or how to enter into it or how to do anything about it, that it's friendly, it's, miraculous, and it's really your state. It's who and what you are and what you've come out of, and you're one with it. Now, how do we become conscious of that? How does the whole world because the reality then becomes, how does the whole world become conscious of it? Because it isn't individual, and it isn't just a small group either, even though that's where it starts, with 2 or more gathered. That's where it starts. But how do we get into that? And that is through the concept of willingness. I remember when I was a young minister, I was praying some stuff like that, because I was looking at things and I was teaching willingness. I was teaching, and I realized how important it was, and I realized how unwilling I was to let go, and how shrewd I could be, and how manipulative I could be in my own mind toward myself to avoid that. And I remember praying to God that the higher power that they would help me with, that higher power would help me with that. That I was willing to be willing. towards what was my highest good. It was kind of interesting. A prayer came across my desk then, not too long after that, which I thought was real interesting. And ignore. I'm going to say it the way the prayer was spoken. And that is not to say that in this case God was Father, but I'm going to say it that way because that's the way the thing was written. But there's no Father, Mother. It's not personal. It transcends it. Okay, but this is the way. But you can use the words. You can always use the words. It doesn't mean a thing unless you want it to mean a thing. Then it can mean on an existential thing all the drama you want it to be until you have to let it go. Anyways, the prayer was this, and I still remember it because it was just so perfect, is capturing what my intention was, and that was, Father, I place my entire being in your hands, and I am formed according to the perfect pattern which you planned and prepared for me in the beginning. Let me say that again. Father, I place my entire being in your hands, and I am formed according to the perfect pattern which you planned and prepared for me in the beginning. And I realized that a lot of that's anthropomorphic and stuff like that, and that's okay, that's fine. But the whole concept is that you release yourself to the universe. The active, conscious direction of the universe, which you can't, in reality, you can't not release yourself to, even if you're fighting it. It's pulling you all the while. It's weaving you into everything. Everything serves the purpose of the whole. But as far as it gets to experience, it's like, I want to experience that. I want to be conscious. I want to be conscious of my part in the whole, and so that my life can be lived consciously along those lines, and that I can touch people and be touched by others, and that we can expand in that touch together. And that's the concept of willingness. And sometimes it starts out again with just being willing to be willing. I had a good friend, he's passed on, and he was so good with words, and his intention was so clear. I remember when I stumbled across this prayer, and I was just saying that, and I was telling him, because we talked a lot about these things, and I said, I just love this concept of willingness. And then I was asking him, I mean, don't you love it? Be willing towards God's love and God's fullness manifesting in you? And he said, he could be real cranky. But he was truthful. He said, no way would I pray that prayer. And I said, well, why not? And he said, I'm not ready to let that happen. That scares me. And I thought, that's true. It can scare you. It scared me. But it also filled me with hope. So this idea of willingness is essential, but it's tied in with those two other things. And it's like, and part of the willingness is, I would say, the willingness to start moving toward these two directions, these two not directions, but these two concepts. And they're not the end all concepts, but I mean, it's certainly they're far more richer and friendlier and harmonious and miraculous than I am a person who lives according to the world. I'm in the world, I'm of it, and it does what it does to me, and I do the best that I can, and then my body dies and I'm gone. That's who I am. And the world I live in is the one that executes that upon me. That I am a victim unless I can overcome it. That's one way of looking at it. And then there's people that take it and say, oh, but there's God and Jesus and they save me from that. That's true. But if I believe in them, they save me from that. And that's a way to look at it too. But both of them are so small. And they start with an understanding that you and your reality are nothing, are weak, are vulnerable, and are insecure. Well, that's not the universe I live in. That's not the universe I live in. I stopped living in that universe a long time ago. I don't have any fear of that at all. I mean, I don't have fear. I mean, I don't have fear of dying. I mean, do I have fear of pain while I die? Yeah, I got some of that. Or suffering. I got fear of suffering. When I went through the dark night, I've gone through like 3 dark nights of the soul, and each time they were tremendous suffering. And each time, like I asked myself, if somebody asked me, well, would you go through that again? I'd say, oh my, I'm not go through that. I said, like, well, was it worth it? That was the first question. Was it worth it? And I go, oh my God, was it worth it? There was so much freedom. I'm so much freer now. And then the second question was like thinking of my daughter or someone like that and say, well, would you want anyone else to go through that? I go, no. God, it was so hard. It was so hard. And that's why we come together, by the way, too, because it doesn't have to be that hard. It is hard when we just are sitting in our own, our own mind, behind enemy lines, and we're just cogitating on, reflecting on all the limited amount of possibilities that we're afraid of, and the things we don't know about. But willingness carries us in there. And it's not something you make happen, but it is something that when you can start to do that, start to be willing towards living in a friendly, miraculous universe. And you don't have to believe in it fully. You don't have to, that doesn't have to be proved to you, but you'll start seeing signs from it. They'll start coming to you. If you haven't seen them already, they will come to you. And this concept of willingness is really essential. Oh, I know the other thing, I'll wrap this up because I started it, and that is rather than those other views, that you have to start to become willing toward something that you talk about self-image. They talk about, a lot of times people have such a hard time with their self-image. Well, you won't have a hard time with your self-image if, like thoughts, you release the meaning of it. You question and release the meaning of the whole concept of self and the image. Like that's the avatar. That's the role you play on the planet. And the planet's the stage, and you're playing a role, and it's called your name and yourself and who you are. It's not real. It's just a shadow. Okay, but you've invested in it. And it's difficult to break out of it, especially when the whole planet is on stage. However, you can. There are mystics, there are people around, not just high gurus, but there's all kinds of people like yours truly who are practicing this, who are living this, and are seeing how it works. Okay, so you have to be willing towards being who you are, and that means perfection. This for Christians. You know what this means for Christians? Because I'm a Christian minister. You know what this means for Christians? It means they have to be willing to be Jesus. No, not to be saved by Jesus, to be Jesus. That when Jesus was talking about everyone there being his brother, and when he was saying to them, you are in this world, but you're not of it, he was talking to them as brothers and sisters, not as a savior. He was talking, and then the whole thing of the cross changes too, because you realize that he went to the cross to actually walk through the most insane thought of all, which was, and the most fearful thought of all, which was everything life and everything good can change because you can be murdered, you can be tortured and killed. He went, not possible, not possible. Oh, there's trauma and there's drama and we'll see all that, but not possible. And it's not possible for you. Long after this existence here is over, you shall be. That's eternal. I mean, your eternality is there. Everything else changes. Yeah, it dissolves. It dissolves away, like your body dissolves when you let it go. But this idea of being who you are and also living in the universe that is yours, which is whole and full without end. This harmonious weave of life that is perfection itself, and you are of it. You don't even know how deeply of it you are, but you can be sure it's not a small part. You are fully of it. So you have to be willing to move into those. At the same time, when your ego might, and your mind might, and your personality might be saying, what? Why would I mean, that scares the bleep out of me. How could I be that? I don't know. How could that ever? It's like, You don't have to know, because, for instance, for me, my willingness also takes in my personality, my ego, and everything about it. And you know what? It has worked fine. I haven't had to throw my ego away. I haven't had to throw my personality away. I haven't even had to throw my bad habits away. I have not had to do any of that, because everything starts becoming wider, more open, and the things that that I have to let go start closing down gradually to whatever speed is necessary in time and space, which is not real, but whatever time and space I've set up for me, I can use with willingness. Willingness is grace. It's kind. It's not a force of slamming awareness. It's a force of gentle, wonderful, harmonic, compassionate awakening. And that's what you're willing towards. And as you start recognizing that, you don't have to affirm it or make it be so. It's in you. It's just a question of like my friend with going to commit suicide. I mean, he knew those three things, that how his life could be better if his girlfriend left him. It didn't mean death. He knew that. I didn't tell him that. He just came to a place, to me, and the universe came to a place where he could all of a sudden see it. And then it was a gentle release and an exciting release. This is willingness. It's essential. It's essential. And it also keeps you from the thing that is going to cause you the most pain and suffering in the world. And that is, instead of willingness, willfulness. Watch willfulness works great in the world, you think, but look at all the whatever we call the parables and the principles around that too. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Why do you say that? Because people know that you're not going to succeed. You're going to have to fight it. And I remember there was one guy that had a quote one time. He said, I loved it. He said, he's saying that, quote, "If first you don't succeed, try again." And then he said, "But don't be a damn fool about it." I love that, because that's how you learn. You don't have to be a damn fool about it, but you can be. But you have to, you will let it go. The question is, do you want to let it go peacefully? And do you want to let it go with friends? And eventually I'm going to talk more about that, because this is really about, all this is, I'm bringing light out in these talks to really prepare the stage for a willingness to be part of I'll tell you what it is. It's a listening group. And I mean listening in its purest sense. To allow, basically to have people, my idea is, not my idea, I think it came from things I read with Krishnamurti and stuff. It's a universal thing, and that is that, all that keeps us from being awake and aware is what's within us that's holding everything that we're holding on to inside. And people are talking all the time, but people don't want to be understood for what they're saying. They want to be understood for what's inside them. And they want to be heard. Listen to people anymore, and it's really, I hear them, and it's like every time they're speaking to me, they're saying, I want to be heard. And I'm trying to learn how to listen to them, because it's hard to listen. Krishnamurti told Bohm that if 10 people in the world could listen, the whole world would transform in a moment. Bohm said, what are you talking about? I mean, why hasn't that happened? And Krishnamurti said, this is in 1983, he said, there aren't 10 people. And I know why, because to be able to be a midwife to someone's inner material, not engaging in it, not being triggered by it, not thinking upon it, but just actually be there for them, to hear them, so that they could let out what's inside them, and they could feel like they are being honored and being respected for doing that, and free to do it. That's what I would like to create at some point, is be part of a group that learns how to do that. Because I can't think of a better way. I cannot think of a better, richer way to live my life. And hopefully so, like with doing this one step at a time, we'll see where it goes, okay? Open to feedback. I'll see. I think I'm going to post this on on YouTube, and then the other things. If some of you out there know me and know how to get a hold of me and things like that, and you know how to do these things, because I'd like to put it out. I mean, I'll just put it out as much as I can and see what the universe does with it, how it would, because I think this idea, this time has come, and I dearly want to be a part of it, and I dearly want you to be a part of it too. If if it works for you, please, even if you just have any interest at all, if you want to do it. Anyway, that's all for now.